Hello and welcome back to another FPL captaincy video. Last week for game week 2 we absolutely smashed it with our Haaland triple captaincy, which we did say it was a very good play last week with all of the stats, and we absolutely made up for the disappointing pick with Isak in game week 1. So we're very happy with that. We ended up with a 51 pointer, and even if you did not stick the triple captaincy on, we still got a 34 pointer from Haaland. So let's jump into game week 3 and see who we've got. So our 4 game week 3 captaincies, we once again have the return of Haaland and Salah. It seems very difficult to go away from these two when trying to pick who we've got. We've also got the return of Cole Palmer as well, who done very nicely in game week 2 with 3 assists and a goal as well, so he was very good. We've got him back for the game against Crystal Palace at home, and we've also snuck in Mbeumo in here, who has had a very decent start to the season, and with the looming transfer of Ivan Toney, it looks as though he could become the main man for Brentford in a very favourable fixture with Southampton at home. We're going to see how he gets on. In terms of Haaland and Salah, they are the two with away fixtures this week, with Haaland against West Ham away from home and Salah against Man United away from home. Now looking at our predicted points then, it's actually a bit of a surprise this week with FPL Team actually having more predicted points for 3 of the players than Fantasy Football Hub. Now, if you've been watching the previous videos, it does tend to be Fantasy Football Hub with a little bit more expected points, with FPL Team a little bit lower. This week it is not. FPL Team decided that they wanted to go a little bit higher this week, especially with the more expensive players. So Haaland is at 7.5 on FPL Team, he's the one leading the way, and he's also at 7.3 for Fantasy Football Hub, so he is at the highest for both of the websites in terms of expected points this week. Salah is a close second, and by a close second I mean a very close second. You see he's only 0.1 below Haaland for this week on FPL Team, and then 0.4 on Fantasy Football Hub. Now, Fantasy Football Hub are also really rating Palmer as well. They are up at a 7, so Palmer's actually beaten Salah just about, but it looks as though he could match him this week. However, FPL Team don't seem to rate Palmer whatsoever against Crystal Palace this weekend, and he's actually scored the lowest of the entire week, lower than what they've got in Mbeumo against Southampton as well. So definitely an interesting one. I don't think we've actually seen that big a gap between two websites with the expected points so far, so we've got a 1.7 point gap there between the two, and then Mbeumo's in there at 5.3 and 5.7, just in case you're looking for a potential differential captain. So looking at the stats from the first 2 game weeks, we've got the expected minutes, XG, XA, and then the return chance for this week as well. Now, Mbeumo and Palmer are actually the two with the 90 minutes, but again, as it's kind of been with the recent videos, and obviously there only has been 2 matches, Haaland and Salah are still very close in there with 89 and 87 minutes, so again not really too much to differentiate those guys. And then in terms of XG, it is a big difference here. Haaland is leading the way by almost double in second place, which is Salah on 2.12 against Salah's 1.21 now. And Mbeumo is right down on this list. You can see he's only got a 0.11 XG, which is very low considering we've now had 2 games from him, so it's definitely something to keep in mind. Palmer is up at a 0.74, again nothing really against these other two, the other two with Salah and Haaland, but you've got to remember that Palmer did play Manchester City in the first match as well, where he was a little bit non-existent, so this 0.74 is mostly coming from the previous game where they won 6-2 against Wolves. Now, Mbeumo is actually the one who's leading the expected assists, as it has been, and as we expect. Haaland is very low on this because he doesn't really pick up assists all that often. Salah is a little bit lower than Mbeumo, but he does take second place at 0.4, and then we've got third place with Cole Palmer. So Salah obviously being the one who is like the most balanced out of all these guys. He's got a very high XG and he has a decent XA as well. Obviously Haaland is basically going to dominate the XG, I would imagine, throughout the season because of how many goals he does score, but again it's always something to keep in mind, and obviously you are expecting this from someone who is going to cost 15 million for you at striker. Now, speaking of Haaland, he is also the one with the highest return chance this week, but again looking at Salah and Palmer, they are also basically right on his tail with some very high chances as well. Salah only 4% behind with 65%, and Palmer only 6% behind with 63%. So goal scoring odds then, and once again Haaland is the one leading the way, and he is, as usual, about 10% higher than what Salah is. I think that's been the case for the last 2 game weeks. He is sitting there at 56%, and now he isn't actually as high as he has usually been with the 2 goals chance. He's only at 22% this week, which is still a very high percentage. It's still going to be more than a lot of players for actually just scoring 1 goal, but in terms of the likes of Salah and Palmer, they are up there with 44 and 45%. Now if you're looking at all of the stats together, you can see how close Salah and Palmer are this week. 45% for a goal for Palmer, 44 for Salah, and then they're the exact same for 2 goals, and the opponents have the exact same clean sheet odds as well. But again, when you're looking at who you're really selecting as the best possible captain, it is Haaland who is dominating the odds. So taking another look at set pieces this week then, once again Salah and Haaland are only on the penalties. And Mbeumo, again another nice differential option, similar to what Eze was last week when we were picking him. He is on all the set pieces with the penalties, the free kicks and the corners. Now of course this is with Ivan Toney out of the squad, which is obviously massively beneficial to Mbeumo, as we've seen how well he did towards the start of last season with Toney still out through suspension. We've also got Palmer in here again, also on penalties, also on free kicks, and does take the occasional corner, which is also going to be very beneficial. But we've got 4 penalty takers once again. I always do recommend picking a penalty taker as your captaincy option. So again, these are the stats that you want to be looking at. Now, looking at the chances conceded and kind of how the opponents have lined up this season, we are looking at, again, not terrible defences, but not brilliant defences. A lot of middle of the pack defences so far. So Manchester United have an XG conceded of 2.5 goals, and they have conceded 2. So again, kind of playing up to their XGC and kind of playing and defending how we would have expected them to so far. Now, West Ham are the 6th worst defence so far in the league. They have a 3.3 expected goals conceded, and they have only conceded 2, so they have slightly underperformed that. So again, could have seen a lot more goals conceded from West Ham so far, which if you are a Haaland owner or a Haaland captainer, that is what you want to see, because obviously we want West Ham to be conceding as much as possible. So West Ham are actually the worst defence on this list in terms of these 4 guys. Then we're looking at Mbeumo. Now again, a very similar defence with Southampton to Manchester United with 2.6 XGC, and again they've only conceded 2 goals. And then we've got Crystal Palace, who are right in the middle of the pack, the 10th worst defence with a 2.8 XGC, and they've actually conceded 4 goals. So as much as everyone thinks that it's been a really poor defence from Crystal Palace, they are actually conceding a lot more than what their chances or the shots that they've conceded are expected to score, if that makes sense. So I don't actually think Palace are as bad as the defence is made out to be. That's basically what I'm trying to say. Then when we're looking at the chances conceded, now if you want to know how we calculate the chances conceded, essentially we come over to Fantasy Football Hub here and we go on the creativity tab. Now we search the teams because unfortunately we need to check the attacking teams, because as far as I know, Fantasy Football Hub doesn't have the actual chances conceded, but what they do have is the chances created for each team and the location of which those chances were created. So we head on to the game week range and we need to calculate each one individually. So obviously looking at, for example, Man City here, they played against Ipswich this week, so we're looking at this now. Opta, these are Opta stats, all of these here. Now the definition that Opta gives a chance created is the key passes plus the assists. So for example, using Man City again, they had 11 key passes and they had 3 assists, so we're looking at 14 total chances created there. Then we'll go head over here and for example we go 42% of those 14 chances created, and then we head over to this spreadsheet after calculating it, and then we take all of the percentages and turn them into numbers, and you put them on this spreadsheet here. Now what I'm doing is calculating them all individually for every single game week. Obviously we flip them as well, because for example, if Man City create a certain amount of chances down the right hand side, for the team that they're playing against, it's going to be flipped for where they're conceding those chances, if that makes sense. Then we head down here and this is going to be the total chances conceded for every single team every single game week. The first 2 games times. Man United only conceded 5 chances from Salah's side. Now the main issue here is going to be through the middle, so someone like Diogo Jota could actually do a lot better than Mo Salah this week, or we could potentially see some assists from Salah more than a goal threat, but I would expect Diogo Jota to do a little bit better than Salah this week. Looking at West Ham, this is again where we really expect Haaland to do well. You can see 13 is the highest number on this graphic, and again it's Haaland who is going to be monitoring that space, so just the only benefits him considering this is the worst defence and they're conceding a lot of chances through the middle. For Mbeumo, he is kind of playing as a striker but slightly as a winger as well, so we don't really know how much this could benefit him against Southampton, but for Southampton, again, they are conceding a lot of chances down the middle with 11 and then 5 on either wings. Then for Cole Palmer, again, is he playing in the middle? Is he going to play on the right? We don't really know too much. If Madueke is going to be playing on the right, it seems as though he isn't going to benefit as much from this, again, as Palace do concede most of their chances down the middle. So once again, just looking at the chances created, it is going to be Haaland who does take the cake here. And because of that, as boring as it is, we are going to go for Haaland as our game week 3 captain. And again, I did make this series hoping that we'd be able to kind of switch it up a little bit, but Haaland is clearly dominating all of the stats. You can see he's once again the highest scoring odds for the week. Still should play the full 90 minutes, or at least should play 85 plus, unless they are a couple of goals up and then they decide to sub him off. Has the highest expected points on both websites, Fantasy Football Hub and FPL Team. He also is playing against the opponent with the lowest clean sheet odds of the 4 that we have picked. West Ham have conceded 13 chances centrally, which again is the highest of the 4 that we've picked, and again West Ham also have the most expected goals conceded of the 4 players we've picked. So every stat basically that we have looked at in this video does favour Haaland as the best captaincy, and that is why we're going to go for him again in game week 3, and hopefully we can get a similar score to what we had in game week 2. But that is going to round off this video. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, make sure to subscribe as well, because we do this every single week, and I will see you all in the next one.